Welcome to the Brass and Woodwind Shop. Today I'm going to work on the valves to the enharmonic euphonium. I started out with 7 different valves to choose from because somebody sent in another enharmonic euphonium and I chose the 4 best valves, and of course I needed valves 1 through 4, so I was a little limited on the valves that I could choose. These valves are in very poor condition, so there's a lot of work to be done on these, so I'm going to get started. See right there, there's a big gap. The solder came unsoldered. This tube looks too far gone to salvage, so I'm going to pull that out. It probably will not take a lot of work to get that tube out of there. Yeah, it's just coming right out. Yeah, there it goes. But it looks like, oh, there, it came right out. So, I'm going to, well, it's still stuck inside of there, but it is loose. I've never done this before on a valve. It is like extremely rare that you would need to pull out a tubing out of a valve like this. But, well, I guess there's a first time for everything. I'm just going to have to collapse this so that it will come out of the valve. Eventually that will come out. There it is. So there's the tube, and there is the big hole in the valve. So I'm going to have to put another tube in there. I have never done that before. I have seen it done at the factory when they're building the valves, so I think I can do this without too much problem, but I just have never done it before. I also noticed that this tube is loose. If I push down on that, you can see it move. So I'm going to have to pull that out too. And I'll have to replace that one also. Okay, I got that one out too. So now I have 2 of those to replace. Now I'm cleaning off the old solder on the valve. I need to get rid of the old oxidized stuff so that the new stuff will stick to it. Usually these are silver soldered on the ports inside of there, but these, for whatever reason, have been soft soldered, so I'm going to have to soft solder the tubes in there because you cannot silver solder anywhere near soft solder. I finished melting and wiping away the old solder around the ports, and then I finished cleaning it up with a triangular knife. Now the metal is clean and the solder will stick where it's supposed to stick. It's been a couple hours. I did some experimenting. Whenever I do something that I've never done before, I usually try to experiment with it first so that I don't mess up a customer's instrument trying it for the first time. What I came up with is I took an old trombone slide and I annealed the end of it so that it is soft as it can get. Annealing is simple. You just heat the brass up till it is quite hot, and you can anneal it to different softnesses, and for this job I want it annealed as soft as it can get, and that means you heat the metal up till it glows orange for about 30 seconds. And you can see the lacquer getting black. I'm not worried about buffing off the lacquer because the lacquer is going to burn off by the time it gets really hot anyway. Okay, now it's starting to glow orange. You have to be careful not to melt the metal too, because this gets quite hot quite fast because the metal is so thin on these trombone slides. Okay, there you can see the metal is glowing orange, and that means it is about as soft as it can get after about 30 seconds. The reason I chose a trombone slide is because the metal is very thin, and you want thin metal on this because it's easier to bend into place. When you use the tube inside of the valve, it cannot just be a straight tube. It has to be curved a bit. None of the old tubing that I found had thin enough walls on the tubing to work for this, so I had to use something straight. So what they do at the factory when they make valves is they put a tube in that is smaller than what actually fits in there, and then they take a ball at the end of a rod, and then they expand it with the ball to make it fit into the tubing. Then they expand the tubing to force it to fit inside of the valve. What I did is I took one of my dent balls, and this one is a little bit smaller than it needs to be, but it is larger than the slide tube, and I soldered it onto a brass rod. Here's how this works. I'm going to take the dent ball and put it in the lapping machine, and this goes at a very low RPM. You want something that's very slow. You do not want something fast to do this job. And then I'm going to take some grease, and what that does is it helps lubricate it and keeps it from getting really hot when you do this. And there's the trombone slide. This dent ball is larger than the diameter of the trombone slide, so I'm going to force this onto here. So now I just expanded the trombone slide. I don't know if you can see it in the video, but it is a larger bore than it was before. And I'm going to use a series of the dent balls, larger each time, to expand this to the diameter that it needs to be. And also what this does is it can help to shape it too. If it needs to be bent a little bit, it can kind of make curves in it depending upon how you put it in there. Now I'm going to put the tube into the valve like that, and it's not firm up against the edge of the valve, but I'm going to take care of that when I ball out the tube. I'm going to cut off the excess tubing here, or at least most of it. I'm going to ball out the one side and then solder it together right here, and then cut this and go through the other side. I think that's the best way to do it to make it work. And also I have to be very careful not to bend the valve while I do this, because just the pressure on the tube while balling the tube could cause it could cause the valve to bend. I'm not worried quite as much about this one here as I am about this one, because the tubing is already has a crack in it right there, and it's mostly on one side, so I'm going to have to be extra careful there. But that's why I'm doing this one first, to give me a little bit of practice before I do the other one. Now I'm going to use the jeweler's saw to cut off some of the excess. I'm going to leave some of the excess though, so I have something to work with if I need to. And also I'm going to, when I'm done with it, file everything off so that it's flush with the face of the valve. Now I'm taking out the smaller of the balls and I'm putting in the larger one, and this one is very close to the diameter of the bore of the instrument, and I'm putting some of the grease on there. Now I'm going to run the ball through the tubing. I think I may need to make one with a smaller ball so that it will fit in easier, and then expand up to the larger one. Now I'm going to take up the larger ball and put in the medium-sized one, and hopefully that will expand it enough so that I can move on to the correct size one. I'll put some more grease on there, and I'll try it again. The ball has expanded the slide a little bit more. I'm going to keep going here. Okay, I think I'm ready for the larger size. And then we should be ready. That expanded it to the point where I can solder it now, because it's flush with the hole in the valve. So I'll put some flux on there, And then I'm going to solder it. And I am soft soldering this on there. And the reason why is the other ports were soft soldered, and you cannot, not the best solder joint ever, you cannot silver solder next to or anywhere near a soft solder joint. So I'm just going to have to do the soft solder, although it would probably be better for ports on pistons to silver solder it. Let's see. Okay, I think we're good. Show you what it looks like up close. So there is the valve, and I know it looks really funny having the valve at the end of a trombone slide, but you do what you need to do to get the job done. I just noticed that there is a little gap right there. I'm going to have to touch that up. That's better. Now I'm ready to cut off the trombone slide tube, or at least most of it. I'm still going to leave a little bit of excess on the side so they have something to work with if something goes wrong. Now I'm ready to run the dent balls through the valve. I have the small, medium, and large, so I'm going to start with the small one. And I'm going to work my way up. In case if any of you are wondering, I am going to unsolder these when I'm done, so I'm not going to leave the balls on there. And I need the grease to help lubricate it. Okay, here it goes. I need to run the balls all the way through so that it's the same bore size the whole length of the tube. So I'm going to run it through both directions. Okay, I got the small one through. Now I'm going to move up to the next size. That is not going through too easily. I might have to solder another dent ball on in between sizes. I'm going to try it one more time, but I want to be very careful not to destroy anything. I think I am going to solder the next dent ball onto the rod to expand it a little bit more, because I do not like the way that's going through there. I made one a little bit smaller than the other one, so we'll see how that works. Now the next one up. We'll see if it works this time. I'll just keep doing this until the job is done. If I need to add a couple more of these sizes on there, I'll do that. But I'll just do whatever I need to do until the job is done. Here's the largest ball. That's the bore size that I need, and it goes through now. So I'm all done with that step of the process. Now I'm going to solder this. There is a little bit bigger gap on the one side than I would like, but, well, I just have to work with it. I'm just going to have to fill it up with solder. Usually it's not the best thing to fill holes with solder, but you know, I don't really have a choice on this one. So I'm adding a lot more than I usually do. right now. And I need to make sure that the solder goes all the way around, because I do not want holes in this. There will be too much solder on this, but that is okay because I'm going to clean it up when I'm done. Okay, I think that is good. I will need to inspect it all the way around though to make sure that the solder is, has gone all the way around the valve. And yes, no, one tiny little spot there, so I have to reheat this. Okay, I think it's good now. Those are some really ugly solder jobs, but that's okay because I'm going to clean that up. I'm going to cut off the excess portion of the tube right now, and also after it's all done I'm going to plate over this so no one will know that it's an ugly solder joint, other than unless you're watching the video, of course. And another thing, I don't know if anyone noticed this, but the bore size on that port is a lot smaller than the other bore sizes, and it is supposed to be that way. I don't know if I've ever seen a valve with two different bore sizes on it, but this one does have that. Now I'm going to use the jeweler's saw and the needle files to remove all of the excess tubing and solder on there. So this is going to take a while, so I'm going to get started. I'm not going to show you all of this because it would be too boring, but I will show you a little bit of me doing this. The blade is trying to slip there. I'm just going to cut around this, and I'm going to make it flush with the face of the valve, and it will probably take, I'm going to say probably an hour to do this. It's been 17 minutes and I'm done with the jeweler's saw. I did break 4 blades on that, but that's pretty common to break blades with jeweler's saw. So now I'm going to file these down, and I have to be careful not to go too far with filing this down. But I am going to put plating, a very thick coat of plating on these valves. So that's going to cover up any mistake I might make, but I'm going to try not to make any mistakes anyway. So I'm going to file those down until they're flush with the valve face. I just remembered something that I can try that will help me get a cleaner job and take off less of the valve and more of the excess tubing that I want to take off. And that's to put some masking tape over what I'm working on. And then what will happen is I will file down the masking tape on the high spots, and then it will reveal the high spots, and it will help protect the rest of the valve. So I'm going to do that, and that should make this job go a lot quicker too. And you know you're getting down to the surface of the valve when the rest of the masking tape starts to come off. It's been 53 minutes and I am done, or at least I think I'm done. I cut off and filed all of the excess tubing, but there is a sharp edge on there, so I'm going to clean that up with a triangular knife, and that will take the burrs off of the edge. Now I'm going to check to see how I did. Okay, that's pretty good. When I lapped the valve down, that will further take off any of the excess that's on there, but there's not a lot. There's one more tube that needs to be done, and I'm going to do that the same way that I did the other one, but I'm going to end the video here. Thank you for watching. In the next video I'm going to get these valves ready and I'm going to send them out to Anderson Plating.